In Kenya, children and women are the most protected by the Kenyan constitution. The Kenyan prisons, for instance, got a population of more than 90% being men, out of which more than 40% are individuals who violated the rights of women and children. I'd love it if you made a video on sex sensitization. One of the inmates proposed, and I couldn't avoid that. In the year 2006, the Honorable Njoki Ndungu introduced a bill that would see several men behind bars. Remember, we always do auctioned vehicles and used vehicles video, but for this, on request, we had to do this. So this video was just to confirm whether the men are just as guilty as charged, whether they violate the rights of women and children or not. So this is one of the beaches along Mombasa. So this is Shelly Beach, and we've got to pass by these dangerous corridors to get through to the other side of the shore. Just one mistake and you get deep into the shores of the ocean. Suppose you're not conversant with the swimming, that would be the end of you. The then Member of Parliament introduced the Sex Offence Act of 2006, and since then children are safer and men who violate their rights are less safe. So in this video we'll just be having a detailed description to the Sex Offence Act of 2006. Since this was done on request, the bill was received with lots of reactions, with the most feeling that it got very severe punishment. So from the 2006 Sex Offence Act, the offences that attracted more weight included the attempted rape, sexual assault, compelled or induced indecent acts in itself, defilement, gang rape, indecent act with children, indecent acts with adults, child prostitution, child pornography, trafficking for sexual exploitation, prostitution of persons with mental disabilities. Defilement attracts the most severe punishment. So let's start with that. Under Section 8 of the very Act, which describes that any person who shall commit an act that will cause penetration with a child would be guilty of an offense that is defilement. So if the person commits defilement with a child between the age of 11 or less than 11, shall be, upon conviction, be sentenced to life imprisonment. So you'll be imprisoned for your entire life. And when the child is suppose the child is between 11 years and 15 years, upon conviction you shall be imprisoned for a period which is not less than 20 years. So not less than would mean that upon the discretion of the magistrate, the year could even exceed 20 years. It could even get to life, depending on the circumstances. At the moment you defile a child that is between 16 years and 18 years, upon conviction you shall be liable for imprisonment for a term that is not less than 15 years. So that explains why there are more male prisoners than female. So in such cases, you can only defend yourself in two scenarios, one of which when the child deceived you into believing that he was an adult, and secondly, if you in yourself you believed that the child was over the age of 18 years, which has to be proven beyond any reasonable doubts. So such instances will be when perhaps you got. So what could be the instances? The child produced a fake identification ID, national identification that is. So believing that the child was below 18 years will only be considered by the magistrate. Suppose you took all the necessary steps to confirm, rather ascertaining the age of that child. That will even include whether you asked for production of an original ID or not. So children are also not safe. Children who engage in sexual intercourse are always referred to the Boston Institution Act and the Children's Act. It is also an offense to attempt to cause penetration, to attempt to defile. So that is just by trying to penetrate the genital organ of a child that will attract a conviction, an imprisonment upon conviction of not less than 10 years. The fourth section was designed to protect women attempted rape. So the moment any person attempts to unlawfully or intentionally commit an act that will cause penetration with either his genital organ or any other object, he will, upon conviction, be liable to imprisonment for a period that will not be less than 5 years. The fifth section is under sexual assault, where it talks about when you, as a person, unlawfully penetrate the genital organ of any other person using any part of your body or any manipulated object, you will be imprisoned to, you shall be liable to 5-year imprisonment. So let us explain some of the terms that we've frequently talked about. So genital organ, for instance, would include the whole or part of the female or male genital organ. And for the purpose of the 2006 Act, it also includes the anus. So I suspect previously the anus wasn't part of the genital organ until this concept of LGBTQ came by. So there's a third section that talks about rape, where if a person would intentionally or unlawfully commit an act with which will cause penetration with this genital organ in the following instances, where the other person does not consent to the penetration, or whether the consent is obtained by force or by means of threat, or perhaps by any form of intimidation, then that will be termed rape. Upon conviction, if you rape, you shall be liable to imprisonment of a term that would not be less than 10 years. However, lately there have been controversies between rape and defilement, where it gets to more of commercial. So when we refer to commercially induced rape, we refer to an instance where a party would accuse you of rape just to financially benefit from you. We've also had several instances where parents would accuse their neighbors or would accuse their co-parents of raping their own children for perhaps any financial, as they anticipate financial gains, or rather, so the cases of instigated, financially motivated defilements and rape are currently on the rise, and potential victims should be on the lookout to avoid any possible traps. By avoiding any loopholes, that is to say that you should avoid any scenarios that makes you into contact with a child whose parents you are in conflict with. When you attempt to rape, attempted rape attracts 5 years imprisonment. We've talked about sexual assault, compulsion, or inducement to indecent acts, when a person intentionally or unlawfully compels or induces or causes another person to get involved in these indecent acts with another person, with a third party. That will be termed compulsion or inducement to indecent acts. So that is when you force or you manipulate someone to get involved. You shall be, upon conviction, be liable to an imprisonment for a term that shall not be less than 5 years. So for gang rape, whether you are more than two persons and you conduct the offense of rape, that will be described as gang rape. So when a person will commit an offense of rape or defilement, and the various 2006 Act, that in association with others, it shall be, upon conviction, not serve less than 15 years imprisonment. So chapter 15 affects most parents and perhaps most tourists. Section 15 talks about child prostitution, and the next will talk about child pornography. So under child prostitution, when a person knowingly permits a child to remain in any premise for the purpose being to cause such child to get sexually abused, or if he acts uh, as a procurer, if he procures that very child, or when he induces that child to be a client of sexual intercourse, when he takes advantage of his influence of or his relationship, or whether he threatens, or when he intentionally or unknowingly owns, leases, rents, or manages, or rather when he owns a movable or immovable property, the property of which is used for sexual exploitation of children, such a person would serve a term that will not be less than 10 years. So chapter 16 talks about child pornography. So this mostly affects tourists. So the moment you so this includes the jurists, a person who sells, lets to hire, distributes public exhibits in a manner that will put circulations for the purpose of sales, or even imports and export convoys of any obscene objects would be